John, you're going to be speaking at the forum at Harvard Medical School next week on this topic. And it would be interesting to hear from you how your Christian faith, how your belief system helps you to make sense of a universe where there is suffering, particularly a universe created by a good God who loves his creation.
Well, this is the hardest question we all face, I think. And it's a question that's not simply an intellectual question, it's a pastoral question. Cancer looks very different through the eyes of an oncologist and to a young mother of 30 who's been told she's got 2 months to live. And I'm very sensitive to this. When I'm asked this question, in an audience like this, there are many people who are hurting very deeply. And I've stood in Auschwitz many times and I wept every time. So how do you deal with it? Now, I can understand people that become atheists because of the problem of suffering. I really can, and I know many of them. But it seems to me that the problem's not solved. To take Dawkins' view, you know, the universe just is as it is. There's no good, no evil, no justice. DNA just is, and we dance to its music. Now, that's extreme determinism. But it's where his worldview leads, and it leads to a world without good and without evil and without justice. And that is a hopeless situation. So I say to people, look, I understand you if you go down the atheist route here, but let me tell you something. You may have feel you've solved the problem intellectually, but you haven't removed the suffering. It's still there. Secondly, you've removed all hope by definition, because if there is no afterlife, and for me that the evidence for that is Jesus' resurrection, then there's no hope whatsoever. There's no hope of redress, and justice becomes an illusion. Now, I want to address that question, and it's a question I've thought about all my life long, because it's the hard question, and the very short answer, and it's not an answer, I don't like the word answer here, because these things are very deep, but let me put it this way. You see, it goes to the heart of my worldview, and at the heart of my worldview there's a cross. Now, it may be hard for some people to follow this, but it helps you to decide about Christianity if you first hear what it says. And what it says is this, that Jesus was God. And we know he was crucified. So what's God doing on a cross, if that really is God? And my response to that is, at the very least, it means that God has not remained distant from the problem of human suffering, but has himself become part of it. Now, that's a window through which we can begin to go. And you see, if I thought that Jesus died and didn't rise, I would have no hope, none whatsoever. But because he rose from the dead to demonstrate who he was, that he was God incarnate and so on, then I look at that cross differently. I see that it's solving a massive number of problems simultaneously. We haven't time to go into them. One, it tells me that there's going to be a judgment. And that's a wonderful thing. Because our human hearts, we cry for justice, we long for it. If atheism is true, the vast majority of people who've ever lived will never get justice in this world, and there's no other world for them to get it in. So it's a hopeless philosophy. Now, I have a problem because I believe in God, but I firmly believe in a God who sees everybody, and who is perfectly capable of compensating and will, in the end, do what's right and be seen to be done what's right, so that we will have no further questions. So as I treat this thing, I say, well, let me put it this way. Personally, my life has been saved by last-minute medical intervention about 7 years ago. I was dying, I had no hope. I was saved. And people say, do you thank God for that? I say yes, but let me tell you something. In the same year, my niece of 22 had a brain tumor that carried her away. And I say, do I thank God for that? I need to be careful what I say about myself. So for me, the only way that makes sense to me of getting into this question is the sheer bigness of the Christian story that tells me about a death and a resurrection that shows me the very heart of God. And therefore, that's for me the center. We're created as human beings with the capacity to love. And my main reason for believing in God is the absolutely unbelievable demonstration of the fact that he loved me and he died for me. Now, that may sound to people to be awful sentiment. But if it's true, ladies and gentlemen, it is the biggest thing in all of God's universe. And I have seen again and again people have hope come to them. I stood in Christchurch less than a week after the earthquake, talking to people that had lost their husbands, lost their wives, and so on. And what I discovered was, quietly sitting with them, I couldn't take their immediate pain away. But when you have person after person saying, I can begin to see hope, that doesn't prove it true, but it doesn't prove it's false. And it all hangs round something, I believe, that happened in space, time, and history, and that's the resurrection of Jesus.